So this is part two of my Japanese photos, which would have been taken in 2002, or so late 2002, when I first got my digital camera and I was dabbling in digital photography for the first time. So I tried to take lots of photos as well as the scenery of Japan. So this was Shizuoka train station, the big station in the big city, and just a market in the train station. There it says Shizuoka train station. And then we went to see the Nutcracker, so it was full on from Russia, and it was a good sleep for me. I think my girlfriend and her friends at the time enjoyed it, and I got to pay $80 for a sleep, but whatever. It was good, I guess. And so this was at the Skin Flute, I think, this bar. And then my wife worked for a conversation school, so my girlfriend at the time, and so she had her boss had a Christmas party every year for all the students, and so she would ask me to be Santa, and so that's what my costume that I got, and so I'm outside being silly there, and just waving at the crowd. And there, for instance, she's paid somebody to play the piano and sing for these kids, and we're giving out presents, I guess, or something. And so these kids were really treated well. Of course, it's the woman's bread and butter, her business, but all over these different schools, they treated the kids really, really well as far as giving them a good childhood. This is our cat, and it had a bobtail or some sort of Japanese cat tail where it's all squiggly or twisted up, curled up, shriveled up. And she's still alive today, something like 17 years later, 18 years later. This was interesting because it's just right outside of, it's all rice fields, but it's just right outside of a train station right there in the middle of nowhere, but in a city. So right outside of the city, there's like a little farm field, I guess, obviously, farm grounds. And there was a convention center there. So that's where we had to walk in order to catch a train. And for instance, there's a little old lady riding a bike, and you don't see that too often around here. So there's Mount Fuji with. Oh, this is taken from Nagano, actually. So a couple people took us to Nagano on a day trip, and we drove all the way to Nagano. And that was to look back at it. And at one point, the photos are probably in here, or the next part three. We also did a trip to Nagano with a ski group and skied for a couple of days at the Olympic venues and stuff, and had the onsens and stuff like this. So we drove to Nagano for the day, just to see puppies. That was it. That's all we did. We just saw puppies. And so there was mountains in Shizuoka. You couldn't see mountains, and so that's why I took a couple of photos of the mountains. And then when we went skiing in the winter of the following year, maybe it's this coming winter in these photos, it was all snowy and beautiful, all those mountains. So it was really nice going there. I would recommend living there. It's a very nice climate. You can see clouds and clear skies, so it's a much better, different climate than where Shizuoka was, in my opinion. I was amazed that there was birch and sort of the foliage, the flora, I guess. With Shizuoka, it was mostly bamboo and everything. Just on the other side of these mountains, on the eastern side of these mountains, it would be bamboo and really hot and tropical kind of conditions. And on this side, the west side of the mountain, on Nagano side of the mountain, it's sort of like North American, what I'm used to, Canadian climate, with Canadian flora. And I've never really seen mountains coming from the hinterland of Canada. There's no real mountains, so I thought they were so beautiful. And same as when we flew to Japan a couple times when we came over Russia, we came over some beautiful mountainscapes. So you can see there's a lot of dogs. It was like a dog breeding place, and we drove, you know, probably a total of 8 or 10 hours that day just to go see this dog place. I guess they wanted a dog, these people, but that we went with, but they never ended up buying one. So it was just like a dog hugging session and then drive back. So this I coached was called speech contest, and we actually won the state championship. There, I think they're collecting their state championship prize. And this was just downtown Shimada on some rainy after a rainy night. And I think that's where I used to rent video games or buy them. Is from right down there at a cross section for a major road. And it was just down from my house, maybe 5 blocks. There it is again. And those culverts on the right hand side all moved. They were all sort of bumpy as you went along them, and they made a sound. And so gray water, I guess it was called, would flow through there. And as I mentioned in the first video, I maybe had some indiscretions in swimming over in Japan sometimes, and that's where it was in stuff like that. Just getting wet, basically, having fun. That's the game place right there on the right hand side. And then a really exclusive supermarket straight ahead on the left, and so I never shopped there. That's looking at my apartment. My apartment is right in the middle, that white old complex, and then the rice field there that I've taken a few photos of. And you can see there's the gray water flowing. You can see it. There's Oigawa again. You can see the gray water flowing again on that one photo, and that's what maybe we swam in a few times, perhaps. And so it was really nice going down to Oigawa all the time because there was hardly anybody around, or it was more like a park area. And this was an interesting spot. It was sort of a bum encampment, a vagabond encampment, and there was pots and pans left for them, and various utensils or even matches, and it was sort of left for them to help themselves if they needed it. Down by the river, so it was a sort of agreed upon no man's land, for lack of a better term. There's people busking a shamisen in the subway or the train station, I can't remember. There's a guy fishing in Oigawa. So look at the size of the fishing pole. I've never seen anything like that big before. And a lot of retirees would, be first of all be up at 5 a.m. and they'd be playing that game. There's Oigawa from some perspective from Kanaya, the opposite city, and that entire area would flood when a typhoon went through. That entire area would be a raging torrent of water. So very, very powerful. And there's green tea. So green tea is just grown wherever there's some free land, and a lot of times it was up in the mountain areas. And so the quickest place to go to the ocean, other than like for swimming, was I forget what it was called, but it was by Shimada, but over toward Oigawacho, and which is like Oigawa, it's town. And we went there to go to the ocean to go swimming, and so this is where I just took some photos along the way, along the coastline, on the way to where you could go swimming. So there's the break wall. So basically, you could go in a lot of different areas to go to the beach, but this was the closest one, and it was about half an hour away, I think. And so, pretty massive waves coming in off the ocean, obviously. So, as I said in a previous video, every sort of water to land area that I saw in Japan, even in the mountains or wherever it was the most natural location, there was always concrete guiding the water. And so it was neat to see all the major guiding or barricades or protectors along the ocean front, such as that staircase that was built for that guy fishing there. And so when we did go to the beach, I don't think I have any photos of the actual beach. But when we did go to the beach, my one friend from San Francisco, he got stung by a jellyfish, and it left a burn mark all over his chest. And it was neat. It was almost like fingers that had scratched down a good length, maybe 40 or 40 centimeters of length along his chest. And so he just screamed and ran out of the water in pain. And so it was a little worrying, but in hindsight, it was a neat experience. And so the Japanese word for sea is umi, which is, I guess, mother. So it's like mother is the ocean is the mother, and it's a really neat connotation or implications of that meaning, where it's a giver of life and creator, so to speak. And there's a massive spider. We had a couple massive spiders in our house or in our apartments. And even in our second apartment that we lived in Shizuoka City, on the fourth floor, we had massive spiders and cockroaches. But our cat that I showed in the pictures here, she got them really well. So we had a good little defender. That was like a hotel. This thing here was on the like an oceanfront resort. There's my car, and I played roller hockey over there at after 10 p.m. You'd go to a mall parking lot, or it wasn't a mall, it was like a supermarket parking lot, and play hockey until midnight, and then get up for work. So eventually I stopped playing because it got a little bit taxing on my work schedule. So I stopped playing, but it was a lot of fun while I did it. And you can see my car was so small and dirty and old, but whatever. This is another one of those parties that my wife's company hosted for their students. And I was somehow involved. I guess I was dressed up, or maybe I must have been taking the photos here. And so it was just, really good organization, and the parents were involved, and they were all really happy to be having this sort of Western culture. So Halloween and Christmas parties. And there, we played on a soccer team, a teacher versus teacher. So each high school would play other high schools around the province or the state, the prefecture, and so we did all right. And then there was also baseball tournaments. So we would partake in the baseball tournaments together, and we would also do tennis tournaments. So there was a real congeniality or collegiality with other colleagues in the education. So in the boards. So it was really nice to have that downtime, and the principal would come, the old guy, and cheer you on, and the vice principal and all the other teachers would come and watch the game and sort of get you water in between, like in between breaks, or like for instance, one teacher took these pictures of us. And so that's it for part two. Part three should be similar length as this one, and it will be in Shizuoka City, I believe.